Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Fitzgerald, Editorial Director for Carolrhoda Books and Carolrhoda Lab at Lerner Publishing Group. It's that time of year when we have new books to tell you about. I'm going to share a little about our middle grade and young adult novels being published in spring of 2022. This Last Adventure by Ryan Dalton follows 13-year-old Archie as he struggles to cope with his beloved grandfather's memory loss. His grandpa has always been his role model, his father figure, his hero. And now he's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's and is seeming less and less like himself. Archie wants to help his grandpa hold on to his memories as long as possible. So he invents an immersive role-playing experience for the two of them where they act out stories from their favorite books that they've read together over the years and from Grandpa's own eventful life. This grounds and calms Grandpa a lot of the time, but it obviously can't cure his illness. And as his condition keeps declining, Archie's efforts sometimes backfire. So Archie has to really come to terms with what he's losing and how he can honor his grandpa with his own choices and his own stories. This is a deeply personal novel based on Ryan's loss of his grandfather to Alzheimer's, and it's honest about how sad and how hard this kind of experience is. But it's also just as much about the family and friends who make up the rest of Archie's support system. It's about adjusting to change and holding grief and joy at the same time. And as personal and specific as the story is, I think any kid who, for instance, has been going through a global pandemic will find a lot to relate to in how Archie navigates this time in his life. The Art of Magic by Hannah Voskuil is an absolutely charming middle grade adventure story that kicks off when 9-year-old classmates ZuZu and Andrew meet at a school field trip to the historic Mapleton Mansion and stumble upon a set of magical art supplies. They discover that they can use these art supplies to draw and paint creatures that come to life. Their creations are harmless and frankly adorable, but of course, there's a catch. They are not the only ones in town who can create magical creatures, and they're about to make a very powerful enemy. So we've got vengeful spirits, we've got creepy monsters, we've got high stakes, but we've also got a very cute sentient squiggle named Clausen, so it all balances out. I won't spoil too much of the plot, but I will say that I love how the magic system in this book is rooted in creativity and in collaboration. For instance, the magic is stronger and better when it's done by two people working together. I also think ZuZu and Andrew are incredibly endearing characters whose growing friendship is a lovely example of two people respecting each other and supporting each other as they team up to fight off the forces of evil. Gold Mountain by debut author Betty G. Yee is a young adult novel about Ling Fan, a teenage girl growing up in 1860s China who's facing a series of family crises that boil down to her needing to make a lot of money fast. So she disguises herself as a boy and heads to the United States, specifically California, aka the Gold Mountain, to get a job working on the building of the Transcontinental Railroad. This was the first rail line that fully connected the country coast to coast, east to west, and it was incredibly grueling and dangerous to build. As one of the thousands of Chinese workers on the payroll of the Central Pacific Railroad Company, Ling Fan has to cut and dig and dynamite her way through a whole mountain range. There are rock slides and blizzards and avalanches and explosions. And of course, anti-Asian racism to deal with, on top of which she has to maintain her cover as a boy the whole time. I've seen folks compare this story to The Legend of Mulan, and I see the parallels for sure. But I also think this story hits closer to home for a lot of American readers. It's about the people who literally built this country, not because they had an idealized vision of America, but because they had priorities and ambitions and lives of their own. They were on journeys of their own. And I hope readers will join Ling Fan on her particular journey. The Deep Blue Between is a beautifully written young adult novel by Aisha Haruna Atta. It's about twin sisters Hassana and Husseina, who are kidnapped from their home in 1890s West Africa and separated. They spend the next several years forging their own very different paths in different parts of the world. Hassana becomes politically active in Accra, which is present day Ghana, while Husseina ends up in Brazil, where she explores a more spiritual path. They each find their voices and build new chosen families, all the while staying connected to each other through their dreams. The story is told in a dual narrative, and each twin has such a distinctive voice and such an unexpected set of adventures that it really is a page turner. I think it's really important, especially in historical fiction, to have as many stories as possible that show Black characters, specifically Black girls, with agency, with rich, varied lives and cultural contexts, instead of only the same roles we've seen them assigned to over and over already. The Deep Blue Between is full of twists and turns that show these two very different characters coming into their own and eventually finding their way back to each other. Thanks for joining me for this sneak peek. I hope you'll check out these novels as they become available in spring 2022.